we thought I would go first to set a low bar so no one else would feel at all shy about coming up. So yeah, to know my dad is to have been touched by him, and to have been touched by him is to have some funny story about him. So I'm sure some of you have some, and I encourage you to share. So I was trying to think, what was my first memory of my father? So I think back, and I think of him as a mountain. You all know that my dad led a very active life, had many things that he liked to do, but he did like to take a nap. And so I think back of him coming home from work and laying down like a whale in the middle of the living room floor, snoring away, and as little kids, climbing over him as if he were a big mountain. Then when I got a little older and I started speaking and listening to what he had to say, then I came to the conclusion that he was German. So, because he would, "Kommen Sie hier, Junge," he would call to us as he wanted us to come to the dinner table. And I visited South Dakota, and I learned that they actually don't speak German up there, but rather English. But I mean, he really enjoyed his German heritage. Later, then, I learned that he did not actually speak German well, but he was not. He learned it, I guess, in college. I'm not sure how he learned German. Maybe around the kitchen table. But he was not shy about using what he had. And well, as the minister mentioned, we spent I think it was 6 weeks around Christmas, New Year's, 1973-74 in Germany. And my dad being the organized man that he was, we would drive around and see things. But we had to drive from Holland to Hamburg to catch a plane to fly somewhere. And it was one of these holidays they have in Germany that we don't have here. So everything was closed, and we're driving across the middle of Europe in the middle of the night, and we are out of gas. This red Rambler we had was on fumes. So my dad pulls up to a bar and goes in. I'm sitting in the car. We're all terrified, especially my mother, who did not like things like this at all. But he goes into the bar, and some minutes later, he comes out with the owner of the local gas station, and they go and open up the gas. The guy was not happy, but I think the peer pressure of the friends he made in the bar somehow guided him to this. Opened up the gas station and pumped up the guy with a stern look on his face, filled up the Rambler, and on we went. So, as we heard in a very, thank you for the detail, I feel like I thought I only had 2 brothers. I guess there was another one. Maybe you lived in the basement there. But my dad loved the machine of government and society. He liked studying, the process of that. So he was very much valued the box, but he did think outside the box when he had to, and he was a bit of a pioneer. So, I mean, the youngest of 8 children, he left South Dakota, and somehow ended up in Washington, D.C. And I thought that was a pretty bold thing to do. And then he worked, as a bureaucrat. He's one of those people that you talk about when you talk about the bureaucracy, working his way up the general service ladder. But then with 3 kids, he decided, I think I'm going to stop that. I'm going to change course and move to Syracuse and get a PhD. And that was a bit of a pioneer spirit, I thought. And then moved to Omaha. And then, as we heard about when my father was looking for work and got a divorce from my mom, sitting there at the kitchen table, or at the card table, it was actually my memory of that. Never complaining about anything, always a positive attitude. He would never allow himself to be despondent. He was always looking positive. And so he decided to take up jogging during this period of time. Now you can imagine as a high school student, I think it was a high school student then, how embarrassing that would be. To have your father running around the neighborhood. Maybe one of your friends would see him. But anyway, so then he came to Des Moines, where many of you met him, and moved from his suburban house in Omaha to, I think, what Eric called a hellhole on Cottage Grove. Is that what we call it? Little apartment, I remember going there, all these cardboard boxes, but, went forward and built a whole new life here, all the activities he had. And in recent years, in the last, since 1996 was it, where he met Uqua, he did what I thought was impossible. which was to meet somebody as thrifty as he is. So I mean, he has a way of pulling these things off, and you know that he had a fight. He had a fight in the last few months for his life, but that was not the first fight he had. 8 years ago, he got very, very sick, and Yu-Hua was there just as much of a fighter as he was, and so they won that battle, and then a few years later he got sick again. They won that battle. And so, did he lose this battle? Well, he was fighting till the end. I remember going and visiting him and saying, "When am I going to go home?" He didn't want to. I don't want to go to the nursing home. Well, let's go home. He always had this idea that he was going to beat this too. And so, thank you, Yu-Hua, for fighting with him all those years. Okay, so let's move on to a little bit more. Just one last topic, which is his wine. Now, you might think he picked up his winemaking here, but I remember he was making stuff since I was a little kid. Not wine. He went. His first phase was soda. He decided he'd make soda. Why you'd make soda? You could buy it, at the grocery store. It's kind of for pretty cheap. It was beyond me. But he made a batch of ginger beer once, and he got, he's not a chemist like his son. He somehow got the recipe wrong, and these bottles exploded in the basement of that house in Syracuse. Then he made some wine in Omaha, and I remember he had enlisted us to go pick. He'd make wine out of anything, actually. Picking elderberries or marionberries along the street. It was pretty good. He made wine once out of tomatoes. This is do not ever. If you see a bottle of tomato wine, do not drink it. It's like the worst thing, the worst cherry tomato that's gone bad. But just about a few years ago, I came and we had a bottle of 1976 wheat wine that he made, and it was not bad. So he could make some good wine. But so he liked to make wine more than he liked to drink it. So this is created his sort of legacy. He's survived by 3 sons, 2 grandsons, my boys Andy and William, a sister, and hundreds of carboys and bottles of wine. So, anyway, I'll end on that note, and please anybody else come up and share.
As long as we're on the wine topic, there's just a memory I'll never forget of Harvey. When he was always busy doing something. There was I don't know how many processes there are. There's the big huge bottles, the fermenting, and then the bottling, and there's so many steps. But whenever it came time to bottle the wine and put the labels on the bottles and the corks and everything, I never really personally got involved in that. But he'd always. You go over to his house, he'd always want you to taste his latest concoction. And he'd always complain too, because I was usually there with Eric and the rest of the band and whoever else happened to be there. And he goes, these guys are always around come tasting time. But when it comes time to do the work, the bottling, nobody's ever around. So, I don't know. I'm guilty as charged too, so. That's just a great memory. He's a good man. I'll never forget him. He's awesome.
Harvey and I were colleagues at Drake. Just a couple of interesting stories. We traveled together in Europe, and we were in Vienna with a group of people exchange. And it's interesting that you brought up the subject of music, because he said, if we're in Vienna, we ought to figure out some way to enjoy the music of Vienna. And so he was able to arrange one of the neatest experiences I've ever had. He arranged for us to go to a concert at the Music Burner. And if you watch PBS sometime in January, they'll have a concert that is recorded at the music room. But anyway, this concert was in this special music place in Vienna, and a Beethoven concert, and the musicians were all dressed in period costumes. It's just an interesting little sidelight. Another time we were in some place, I'm not sure where it was, I think it was in Germany, and we were in a brewery, and sampling the beer, of course, and he thought the beer was inferior, and he thought that he should bring this subject up to the brewmaster. So he started out in English, explaining how he thought beer should be made, and the German brewmaster took offense at this. And Harvey was really only trying to have a conversation about the appropriate method for making beer. But what was funny was, as the conversation went along, they both got a little bit upset, and the conversation, instead of staying in English, lapsed into German, and just went downhill from there.